first question is actually to you all. Do you prefer this to be in English or in Bulgarian? Okay, fine. So, Veso, you've been around the Bulgarian game industry for quite a long time, and I know you...
Yeah, unfortunately.
I know you don't want to speak mostly about yourself, but could you please walk us through your career?
Well, in brief, in 1996, I think, I started working on a game called Tzar. Probably you heard about it, or maybe not. And 2001, founded a company called Black Sea Studios. 2008, sold it to Crytek. 2016 left and decided to reboot the old Black Sea with just a smaller team and you know, like more like family type of thing, not really a huge company, not growing until the oblivion or something. Just stay hardcore, do hardcore games, no free to play, no mobile stuff and stuff like that. That's the. But you never know what happens, so we'll see. But that's the plan.
Microtransaction in your next game?
I'm kind of blessed to be able to express myself. My personal thing is I don't really like microtransactions. It's just not my cup of tea. So, but again, you never know what happens. It could change tomorrow morning. I don't know. I'm not sure. But for now, that's the thing. Okay. We would like to see a bit of this old hardcore gaming from the late 90s kind of reborn or remade or this type of experience, yeah.
So what you did with Tzar, what was actually like working on the first commercially successful Bulgarian game?
I see many colleagues here from that time with whom I worked, and thank you for your patience back then. I was completely inexperienced, but very I don't know, maybe in some sick way, very motivated to make it happen. I was a gamer, I was playing a lot, so I wanted to make something that will just make me happy playing. Yeah, and so was messy in a way, but we did it. So nothing more to say. Maybe ask more.
Okay, why do you think the RTS as a genre of games started having this a bit of a decline for the past maybe 10, 15 years? It's not as popular as in the 90s and 2000s. So why do you think that happened?
Oh, that's a very tough question. I'm not sure I could find some very scientific reason for that. Perhaps there are different opinions. I have a suspicion why the RTS games were so much made in 80s and 90s, and they were easier to make, actually. There was no that huge demand for over complexity or production qualities and production values and stuff, and Blizzard didn't invent the super movies in strategy games yet. And it was kind of easier. And then the hardware evolved, the business industry, the gaming industry started to evolve, and we started seeing much more Hollywood in games. And also we played our strategy games. I mean, how many times you can find your strategy game #1? It's just once. And the gaming generations, they're not changing as fast as technology and as the games themselves.
Okay, but we see a lot of young gamers who are mostly into esports. Why do you think the shift occurred? I mean, once upon a time, we hardcore gamers, we preferred longer games, games with more strategy in them, but now the esports are the thing.
Well, it's the new thing. It was needed. It was about time for that stuff to happen. So, and how many times you can play the same RTS game with different names and different settings. Once you enjoy it, once you master it, the new proposition is just doesn't deliver the same thrill as the original one. So there was very nice lectures here. I really was very interesting for me to listen to the colleagues what they say, and several people say it be careful not to do something that already is made. I've done this mistake a few times, so I know it's esports a new thing.
Okay, do you think that other RTS games can have the esports future that, let's say, StarCraft have and still has?
Can you repeat, please? Sorry.
Do you think that other RTS games can have the same success in the esports scene as StarCraft?
I'm not sure how you compare StarCraft with esports scene, like the games like Dota or League of Legends, if that's what.
Well, there are a lot of competitive esports StarCraft tournaments in the world.
Oh yeah, well, is it a StarCraft? What is StarCraft? I mean, for me, StarCraft is the campaign, the micromanagement of units, this specific feel of how you move, how you build, how you evolve your colony and stuff. But then, if you look at the ecosystem of StarCraft, there are so many mods and so many things that people do, and just as in Warcraft, there was the first Dota, and before Tide of Bloods, that mod, it started from there, from that ecosystem. But so theoretically, you could say that Warcraft 3 succeeded by turning into Dota. So it's not, there are not so strong boundaries between things. I believe it's evolution.
Okay, so the next one is a bit of a personal one. Which is your biggest failure?
Well, it remains to be seen.
Okay, what about your biggest success? So what about your biggest success? Your pride and joy?
Same thing.
Okay, tell us a bit more about Black Sea Games, your new studio.
20 and something people working on a game which is not announced yet. We're in the second year of development. So it's again hardcore PC game, strategy with all the role-playing elements and stuff. And that's pretty much everything I can say without the game being officially announced.
Okay, so any questions from the public for now?
That creature belongs to the zoo.
What kind of people are you looking for when you're building a small team like yours for a game? What do you look for in possible future employees?
Well, if we speak about positions or other things, because other things are also important, we're looking for programmers, graphic programmers, 3D artists, producer, and stuff like that. But also we are taking or at least trying to take very seriously the soft skills of people. And we're looking for people who are friendly, able to work well with their colleagues, and have positive motivation, self-motivated people who really want to make something nice that they'll be proud of later. Yeah.
And what kind of people you will never hire?
How to say this? Truck drivers.
So you're not a fan of Truck Simulator then?
No, it's a tough question. We always try to, if the people have the professional skills, try to look at this human thing as far as you can judge, because you never know. I mean, some people are really great actors, but yeah, everybody are welcome.
Okay, next question from the audience.
Is it easier to make games now than it was, say, 15 years ago? And how is it different?
Good question. From one point of view, it's a bit easier because you already have some experience, so you learned a lot of things. So it's kind of easier to avoid the obvious mistakes which are now obvious, but they wasn't like that before. But on the other hand, now you make more sophisticated mistakes. So overall, I think it's easier. It's turning into a culture. The development, thanks to the engines like Unity or Unreal, which are very accessible, and that creates community. People are interested in making games since their young age, and that's okay. When we started, you remember, with Tzar, there were no such thing like a game industry in Bulgaria. There were no programmers, game programmers, no game artists, so everything had to be created on the fly. We didn't know how. But now there is a machine, and it's not one ecosystem. There are several ecosystems in Bulgaria in parallel, which are not necessarily mixed perfectly. I mean, that's this richness of the local scene. That's a cool thing. So in this regard, it's kind of easier. That's my honest opinion.
Okay, you mentioned the engines. I know that you're using Unity for your next game. Why did you choose it?
The speed for the development, and also it works well for the type of game we are doing. I said hardcore, but it does work very well for us. That's one thing. The business model is very simple. Well, with Unreal, it's a bit more difficult. And also, I knew that we had to build a team from scratch. It's easier to build a team with Unity than with Unreal. Unreal is very demanding for skills, it is very heavy as a production process, or could be very heavy. Or let's say people expect it to be very heavy, like the partners you work with and stuff. So Unity seemed like a good decision, and yeah. And also, well, never mind, sorry.
No, come on.
No, was about to tell a secret, but no.
Okay, question from the audience?
Yeah, over here. You mentioned something about the different ecosystems that are residing here. You know, Bulgaria is a type of market that the big studios came over. You know, I'm just comparing in my mind, like with the likes of Poland, where you have more like indie scene and stuff like that. Which way do you think is more beneficial towards the development of the gaming industry all around, the creative side of it, and of course the business side of it? Which way, the big studio way or the indie way?
You think for an individual or for
the whole?
For the whole?
Yeah.
The more we have, the better, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we had one more.
You mentioned that you're a gamer. How important it is, in your opinion, to be a gamer in order to produce good games? And is it something you specifically search in the people you hire?
I think it's again depends, but the smaller the studio is, the more important it is. The bigger studios, they usually have means to organize better themselves and to take decisions in a more with more evidence they have in their history, because you don't grow big like this. It takes time, but with time comes experience. And with experience comes the teams and all the people who can make judgments a bit better, and they know the market better and stuff. But if you are a small indie or a group of several people and you want to make the game, then you have to play. And the colleagues from Gameloft in the beginning, they said you need to know your players, your customers. But if you're, let's say, 18 years old guy with your friend and one more friend and maybe his sister, and then you want to make a game, there is I have a doubt you can know your player. So the best choice for you is to know you. So you make the game for you. You should make it for you, for yourself. And that's the only judgment. It might not be the best. It probably is not the best, but that's the only judgment you can rely on when you're very young. So there is that huge difference between big and small studios and stuff. Did this answer the question, or I just... Okay.
Okay, I also have a question. What is the biggest challenge that indie studio in Bulgaria specifically have?
Which studio?
Any indie studio, just based here in Bulgaria.
Well, that's we should go to very top level if we talk about all studios. Maybe it's maybe the country. I'm sorry. I'm patriot myself, but I think the country is not the, let's say, could do better overall.
Yeah, okay. Any other question? Okay.
Um, so here, you mentioned a couple of times that you were aiming at the hardcore players, and I can tell you're a hardcore player yourself. I am also a hardcore player, but again, with this thing with the generation and after the 2000s, don't you think that your game would turn to a bigger crowd if you aim at casual gameplay?
That's again very good question, but also again I'm lucky to have the chance to judge that thing and at least try. I think for a game it's easier. A successful, well-done game, it's easier to reach to a more casual audience after it already reached and captured the, the hearts of the hardcore players. And vice versa, if you aim the game for a pure casual audience, of course it's possible, many people do it, but I don't know why, but I think it's much harder for these type of games to go to the hardcore. Notice, I'm not talking about money here at all.
Okay. What do you think describes a hardcore player nowadays?
The red eyes. I don't know, really. Hardcore players, achievers, people that have a need to, or I would say the need to feel smart, to be challenged by a serious or interesting problems, and they feel satisfaction of solving those things. And also those kind of people who are, as my colleague and friend Gabriel said, who loves to write their own stories in games. Notice they are not just one kind. It varies between types. So there are very hardcore esport players. There are very hardcore strategy players or very hardcore RPG players who, beyond the computer, they also go to events and, dress, how was that called in English? Cosplay, yeah, right. Cosplayers and stuff, so it's also hardcore. It's a way of living, and it's not just sitting on a city, on a bus stop and just doing that, like, popping something. Yeah.
Okay, questions?
Thank you. Hello, I'm not sure if you saw an earlier presentation from the Creative Assembly, Sofia, but they have a big new office which includes a love tunnel. As a smaller studio, how do you attract employees to join you instead of the bigger companies?
After 25 years, I can tell you my dream is for our studio to be the place where the people start their careers, not where they end it.
Okay, other questions? Mif, do we have any questions on Twitch?
Hello. So I wanted to ask you, back in the days when you were developing Tzar, what did you think back then the future of the industry would be here? If you thought there would be any, like, what were your thoughts about the future?
Well, back then, I don't know if you are going to believe me, but back then I really didn't think about the future. There is a lot of friends here who know it. I really didn't think much about the future. No plans, no something. Well, after Tzar, we started making, I was in Hemimont back then, and we started making a 3D engine ourselves. It didn't work for, I don't know what reasons, I don't remember anymore. But, well, we were like 20-something back then, not really very future-focused people.
Right. And if I could also ask, what do you think now the future of the industry will be here? Do you think it's going to expand, become bigger, or, maybe stale out, remain at where it is?
I definitely don't know what is going to happen, but it won't disappear. That's one thing for sure. What I really personally feel is that there should be a little less fraud, or let's say not fraud, but some kind of shady ways to get money from your players. Misleading interfaces, things that really build on top of naivety. What's the English? How it's called? Yeah, this type of thing. I don't like this approach, but I understand it. It's normal. It's logical. It's not the gaming industry that invented that thing, but I would be a little happier person if I see less of that. But I don't know if this is going to happen, to be honest.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, Have Fun TV. Do we have any questions from you?
Well, we don't have a certain question. We have more of a statement from our chat that game companies should look for gamers when employing. Doesn't matter whether it's a designer or a management level or whatever, because otherwise games seem more sterile when they're not made by gamers. So here comes my question. Which are the games that you loved playing and that have inspired you in creating your own games?
There are many, but there is one game that sticks for two. That's Heroes of Might and Magic 3 and Civilization. Of course, those games are. I still play Heroes of Might and Magic 3 every now and then. Yeah, it's a brilliant. Around that game, I learned a lot about John von Hanenkam, the designer who was there back then in neural computing and stuff, and I was that close to write him, but I'm too old for this, so he won't understand. But yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Did it answer the question? Yeah, it's important. I completely agree. It's important for people who work in gaming industry to also be a gamers and enjoy gaming and have their own really personal favorite games. It's very important.
Okay, I want to ask you something a bit controversial, honestly.
So you have to.
Sorry, I'm really curious about that. So there are some rumors and some talking that the game industry in the world, the worldwide game industry, is heading towards another big crash. Do you think that this is true?
I really don't know. It could be anything.
Okay, questions?
Yes. How do you think time is needed to develop Heroes 3 using nowadays technologies compared to like when it was developed originally?
I think Ubisoft did it. They did some version of HD version. It was on Steam. I bought it. Was very disappointed. There was no random up.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they did it, but maybe the colleagues from Ubisoft could find that info internally. But it's a very complicated game, actually. I have this luck to know the people who did the last few Heroes of Might and Magic games. I know them since 20 years. And we had a couple of beers with them recently that August at Gamescom, and they were really explaining me the little things that which I didn't expect actually exist in a game like Heroes of Might and Magic. So I would say for experienced team, with like 50 people, it could take easily like 2 years. That's what I think.
Hello. Here. Right here in the middle. Yeah. So I want to piggyback on an earlier question. You said that you weren't thinking about the future back then. Are you thinking about it now, and where do you see Black Sea Games in 5 or 10 years? Are you gonna grow big and attract financing from somewhere like Crytek, or are you gonna stay indie forever, and why?
Well, first thing we want to do is really as good game as we possibly can. That's the first goal we have, and after that, everything depends on that. So. I mean, it's connected, so I'd prefer, instead of dreaming for what will happen in 10 years, to focus on what we do right now. I think it's the better thing to do. Of course, we have some maybe plans or something, but it's wise not to spend too much energy on things like that. And you reminded me about a funny video in YouTube, but how do you see in 10 years that's hunting, maybe gathering? There was this HR. Anyway, it's a specific humor. You can search it, HR in Stone Age. That's the name of the video.
Yeah, I think everybody has that question, actually. So, other questions? Okay, do you have any advice for our jammers?
Any advice?
Except have fun.
Well, have fun, obviously, but believe that you can make a game in 48 hours and you will make it. That's the first step to really feel like, okay, I want to make it. Don't overcomplicate things. Keep it simple. Very, very, very simple. Painfully simple. That's the key. And don't try to find the best idea ever. Just, there is no best idea ever. So stay focused. Don't argue with each other. Respect each other. That's it.
Questions? Okay.
Okay. I would like to ask you, what would you tell to somebody who's just getting into the gaming industry or who's just trying to get into the gaming industry?
Well, you need to learn. That's one thing. If, let's say, a game studio has a choice between a guy who knows nothing and a guy who has some experience, obviously the guy with the experience is more preferable. So try to improve yourself and try to learn and use your free time to build some skills and get some engine which is easily accessible, read in the internet, try stuff yourself and stuff like that. Just don't give up. That's the key.
Okay, other questions? Okay, you promised us a joke.
Oh, you already wrote it in the press releases that I'm legendary. I really laughed at that. I don't feel like this at all, but thank you.
Okay, so final call for questions. Okay, any last words for tonight?
I'm not dying. No last words. We'll see you. Come on.